really does go against the stereotype of bickering step families. Really does.
The only reason why they would bicker is if one was not over the other, or if they had a bad breakup. But I mean, it's never been like that for my biological parents at all.
How do you call or refer to your step parents? Do you call them mom? Do you call them dad? Or do you call them stepmom or stepdad? How do you refer to them?
Well, I call her by her name.
You call her by her name?
When we first met, I used to put a miss in front of it, Miss Nikki. But eventually, she was just, drop the miss. You don't have to be so formal, basically. And
right. In other words, just relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
It actually took me a while to get used to that, but eventually I learned to just say Nikki. But when she calls me son, why not call her mom sometimes?
What made you feel like you had to call her Miss Nikki?
Well, I only called her Miss when we sort of first met, because then it's just respect thing. I guess it's how you've been raised to call an adult.
Yeah.
What about you, Mars? How did you your stepmother and your stepfather, you have a set here, how do you refer to them? Do you call them mom? Do you call them dad? Do you say Mr. or Mrs., or do you call them by their first name?
It's actually exactly the same as Robert. When I first met them, it was always hi Miss Kim, hi Mr. Bill, and as it sort of progressed, my stepdad, he just sort of like, with what Robert said, just told me you don't have to, say Mr. And my dad, he was actually like, don't call her Miss all the time, make her feel sort of detached, like you still don't consider her over a stepmom, you just consider just like an adult that's here almost.
Okay.
And
an adult that's here.
Yeah,
gotcha.
That's really it. I mean, and the whole, well, when we first met, it was getting comfortable with them and calling them, dad and mom. I never, no offense to either of them, but I've never truly been comfortable calling either of them mother or father.
Why not?
Because that's a title that is given to my birth mother and my birth father. No, and again, no disrespect to them at all. I love them both, just as much as I love my real father and my real mother. But at the same time, dad is a title for my biological father, and mother is a title for my biological mother. But at the same time, like Robert was saying, if my stepdad would call me son, I'll just, reply dad or something. Just out of respect to him, I don't want him to feel bad, like I don't think of him like that. But at the same time, that title is sort of reserved for my biological parents.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Completely understandable. And speaking of a step parent saying something to you and you responding to it, I've always been curious about the whole I love you piece. I say it to my mother and father all the time. I love you, mom, I love you, dad. And I have never been in a situation where I've ever had to say that. I've never been in a situation where I had to say that to someone else who had to come in and be a parental figure to me. I've only just had those two, mom and dad. I'm always curious, do you all say I love you to your step parents, or do they say it to you? And when they say it to you, how do you respond?
I mean, when it first started, it was sort of, I guess, different, because I've really never had an adult outside of the family tell me that they love me. So it was sort of awkward to begin with, but as me and my stepmom's relationship grew, I mean, it became natural, and I mean, I love her now. So.
Do you say I love you?
Yeah.
Do you say I love you, Miss Nikki, or do you say I love you, Nikki?
I love you, Nikki.
I love you, Nikki.
Whichever one.
What about you, Mars, for your stepfather that is married to your biological mother, and your stepmother who is married to your biological father? Do they say I love you?
Yeah, both of them tell me it all the time. They'll be like, I love you, and I just respond, I love you too, Kim, love you too, Bill. It's just like, it was kind of hard getting used to saying it at first, because I sort of didn't know them, and I didn't think it was genuine. I thought it was sort of just like they're saying it to make my real parent think that they really do. I didn't understand that, you know, if it was, I didn't think that it was real. I thought it was sort of just fake, really. You know, they don't really mean that they love me. They're just trying to say it to, you know, make my mom like them more, make, you know, dad like her more. And as time progressed, you know, as I got into middle school, I started seeing, you know, that they really did love me. In fact, we were dealing with divorce and custody and all that, so I was constantly switching between homes, and I'd see they do things for me that, you know, you wouldn't think that someone who did love you would do for you, that someone who, you know, really didn't care much for you wouldn't do. So I just started seeing more and more they actually did love me, you know, that they weren't just saying it in front of mom or saying it in front of dad so they can get, you know, brownie points with them.
Yeah,
so
because a lot of time we get in that mindset to where it's just like, if somebody says I love you, you can't just sit there awkwardly, you know. It's sort of like a reflex to say it back.
Yeah.
But eventually you get to that point to where it's like, it's not a reflex, it's actually real.
Yeah.
After a while, the I love you, you begin to see the genuineness that is manifested in the words themselves. They no longer become words, it becomes a feeling. It becomes an emotion. I understand. I understand completely. You know, there's always an issue of trust that comes along with step-family relationships, and that's the case even in biological families. So in step-families, it's on a whole nother different caliber, an entirely different level. Were there trust issues when your step-families began to form, when your step-families began to develop? Mars, your step-family came not too long after you entered high school. You said your your biological parents divorced when you were 8, and Robert, your biological parents divorced, you said, since you were a baby, since you were about 1 year older. So was there ever any trust issues between you and your step-parents as when they first came into the picture, or was it kind of an immediate thing in regards to, well, you're married to my mom, you're married to my dad, so I guess if you're married to them, then I can trust you? Or was it something that had to be built up or developed and gained over time?
At first with my stepdad, I was in the 5th grade when we started living together. That's when I moved with them for a while, and I trusted him. You know, I'm just like, okay, you know, he's my stepdad, this is cool, I've got another parent. And as I got older into high school, I noticed he was always really happy. He's always smiling, just, you know, a very happy, nice person. And I kind of had the mindset that I shouldn't trust him because he was always, you know, happy, smiling all the time. I just kind of didn't like it. I'm kind of a gloomy person back then, you know. Kind of like, I don't like this guy, you know, smiling.
He's
all the
too
time.
happy.
Yeah, and then, you know, as I got into my senior year, when I actually moved to stay with my mother, I started realizing, you know, he's just a very happy person. He's always in a good mood. You know, with my, you know, kind of downer sort of mood, it's kind of like I kind of didn't understand it. I didn't get why he was always like that, and it made me not want to trust him because I thought he was, you know, just sort of scheming, a little paranoid, I guess. And with my stepmom, I sort of always trusted her. She was pretty genuine all the time. I never really saw a reason that I shouldn't have trusted her. And I mean, we still have that same relationship now. But I never, and I mean, no offense to either of them with anything I'm saying, but just sort of my stepdad. I mean, he was just a little too happy for me personally.
For your personality.
Yeah, and I was just kind of like, this guy's a little too happy for me. Didn't agree with it.
So, is it safe to say that for you, Robert, that the trust was just kind of there, or that it had to be
Well,
developed over time?
Well, my stepmom and my dad, they got together when I was in high school, when I first started high school. So I was sort of at that mindset to where if you know me personally, I will keep you at bay until I start to accept you. And just meeting somebody, you know, it's like I'm not gonna.
It doesn't happen that way.
No, and not that quickly. So, I mean, after a while, I got to know her. I got to see the things that she likes, and I guess analyze her personality. And then it just started. It's hard to explain because you can't really put words together that can make up what trust actually is for a person. But it just was there, and then it just grew over time. Sort of like starting a dream. You don't start a dream at the very beginning. You just get thrown into a situation. All of a sudden, you're in it. So it's like that for trust.
What kind of things did your step-parents do, that your respective step-parents do, that allowed you to say, okay, I can trust you? Was there anything specific, or was it any one thing? Like was it one moment where it said, yep, I can trust you? Or was it something that you saw over a period of years, over a period of months, over a period of days, over a period of time?
Well, for me personally, I guess it's when I was in a vulnerable situation, how I would tell her something out of trust, that, you know, there would be no judgment. And she told me that, you know, basically she showed me that I could trust her at that point.
What about you, Mars? Was it any one thing that you were able to pinpoint to with both of your step-parents, your stepmother and your stepfather, and you were able to say, yes, I can trust you? Or was it something that you kind of saw stretched out or over time?
It would probably be more of a over time sort of deal, because I just sort of gradually trusted them more and more. You know, just doing little things that, you know, would sort of be like, you know, he isn't too bad. You know, I can trust him. You know, just like my stepdad, I could tell him things that I wouldn't dare tell my mom ever. Just like, I'm not telling her that. I'm gonna talk to my stepdad about it. You know, it would be, you know, man to man with us. You know, it would stay within us. And with my stepmom, not so much that, but it's just things that happened that I wouldn't. Well, actually, it would be kind of the same. Things that happened that I wouldn't want my dad to know, and she knew, she wouldn't tell him, because even if it would have, you know, led to disciplinary action that I may have deserved, at the same time, she still wouldn't have told like that. Not to hide secrets, but just knowing that I really didn't want him to know something.
It's like, you know, could you just kind of keep this between you and
like,
me? No deceit or no secrets.
Yeah, it's like telling a friend a secret. You don't want to tell a friend something and then he tells his friend and says, hey, don't tell anybody I told you this, because then it's just going to make a circle, because then he's going to tell his best friend, hey, don't tell anybody this, and it's basically, the secret's just going to be pointless. You got to have that friend that'll just be, you know, straight up with you. Like, all right, I'm not going to tell anybody this.
And I've always noticed this too, even not only in this field of news and journalism, but just in personal relationships. When information is distributed through a third party, when information is distributed through the mouth of someone else, sometimes information can either get added or can get left out. And sometimes that's not always intentional. Sometimes it can just happen. People are trying to, you know, they're trying to remember just from, you know, if no notes were taken, especially, they're trying to remember just from words alone or just from the conversation itself. And some things can get added or left out, or personal spins or personal interpretations are brought into third-party distribution of information. So, and sometimes that can create chaos, and it can create discord within any unit. Would you all say that you have had more positive experiences or negative experiences with your step parents?
Positive.
Yeah, definitely positive.
Positive. What kind of message do you have out there for people who have negative